Good morning. The June 20th Board of Education is now called to order. Please rise for the invocation. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. The pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education. This meeting is being televised live on AACPS TV and live streamed on the internet. General information and protocols for the meeting are posted on the sign by the doorway as you enter the room, so please make sure you read those if you have not already. Item 2.03 is approval of the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Okay, all those in favor? All right. Item 2.04 is establish agenda order. Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that in the event the fiscal year 19 operating budget adopted by this Board of Education later in this meeting does not fully satisfy the terms of any approved negotiated agreement with any employee bargaining unit, that the Board add items to today's agenda to adopt terms of employment as necessary for members of those bargaining units. And I further move that such agenda items as necessary would be heard before item 5.11.
All those in favor? Okay. The agenda stands as amended. Okay. Item 2.05 is recognitions. And this is always the time of year that we do a recognition that is a little bittersweet because we will be saying goodbye to our student board member. Lucia has served us well and ably for the past year, and she is an outstanding young woman. We are very excited for her next adventures into the world. And we wish her all success and have no doubt that she will do very well. So thank you so much, Lucia, for your time here. We have a lovely clock for you as well that you can keep there to keep you on Navy time as you enter into your ROTC world. So, Miss Nally.
I have been impressed with your maturity, your consideration of each and every. We've had some very difficult decisions. Lucia has not been one. I know that sometimes people say, oh, the student board member just does what the board tells her to do. Absolutely not. She is very well thought, thinks it out, studies the issues, comes prepared. You are very impressive, and I just know that Norwich is gaining a hero. So we will miss you greatly, and I just want to thank you for your hard work. It is extremely difficult to be a student and a very successful student and follow through on all the things that the board membership requires you. A lot of people think it's 2 meetings a month. Lucia has made it much more than that. She has attended many, many events, graduations. We can always count on her. So thank you very much for everything you've done for Anne Arundel County Public Schools.
Absolutely. I want to echo the same. You have been wonderful. You have been, as you and I have talked each month, I think most people know that I meet with the president of the board once a week, and I meet with each member of the board once a month. And I come out to Chesapeake Science Point, and we meet in the principal's office, principal's conference room. And you always come prepared. You always say, yeah, I've got a couple of questions. And you pull up your phone, and you're always ready for me. And we've got lots of questions and lots of things to talk about. You've taken the post very, very seriously. You took the election by your colleagues, the students of Anne Arundel County, very seriously, and you represented them well. You are a student voice, both out here around the county and in closed session, and it's been incredibly impressive. We know you're off to great things. You're going to do wonderfully well in the ROTC unit at Norwich. And I know that you're going to make yourself and your family, your parents proud, and you'll do the same for us. We have a couple of things for you. One is, you'll notice this is now missing from your parking space at Chesapeake Science Point, so you can, I don't know if you're allowed to have this at Norwich, but you're more than welcome to take that with you. Or maybe you can come up with your own parking space at Norwich. So that is for you. From your year with us, we've had Design and Print pull some of the pictures of your time with us and around the county. And we want you to take this with you as well. You are wonderful.
Thank you. Wow.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to add, I think, to what's been said. Certainly Mrs. Nally hit a lot of the key points that I was going to say. I think she was copying off of what I had written. But
I didn't have any notes.
I just want to add to thank you for your service, and it's really been a true honor to work together with you over the last year. And I think, as Mrs. Hummer said, it's always bittersweet. We know we're not saying goodbye; we're sort of saying see you later. But we also know that the next 4 years, we may part ways, hopefully just temporarily. As I've said in prior years, I think you've raised the bar, continued to raise the bar for this position, and I think you've paved the way for others to follow in your footsteps. And I know that your successor will continue to do well as you have. I also, on a personal note, want to say it was really an honor to attend your graduation party. I have never been to a party like that, and you've got some moves. I saw all of the. Oh yeah, that's right. But the experience of that night, and I know Mrs. Korbalak's not here as well, but she and her husband, would say the same thing, that was such an amazing party, and to be part of the Samoan community that night was just an amazing experience. It was said by many that night that they are so proud of you and all that you've accomplished, and that you're one of the favorite daughters of the Samoan community. But I would just say you're also one of the favorite daughters of Anne Arundel County, and also one of the favorite daughters of the state of Maryland. As a former legislator, I have absolutely no responsibility whatsoever, but I do have the honor of giving out Maryland flags. And what I do have today is a Maryland flag, just to say that you are one of Maryland's favorite daughters.
Ms. Cole.
Well, I'd like to say thank you to everybody up here. They make me look good as I help them look good as well. And to everybody in the audience who are always answer my questions if I send emails and everything. And to everybody and the students who have helped support me in ways that I can't say. And Ms. Pellegrim for helping me as well. And I'm going to keep it short because I'm honestly holding back tears. But thank you, everybody, so much. I am so honored to be here. I know Josie is going to do great things in my position next year, and I'm excited to see her up here next meeting. And again, sorry it's redundant, but thank you guys so, so, so much.
Item 2.06 is school and community highlights. Anyone? So, well, I'll say Dr. Arlotto and I had the pleasure Monday of going out to Brooklyn Park Middle School for the opening day of the Summer Farmers Market that we have out there. It's a wonderful partnership that we have with Schlegel Farms. I think this is the third year. And so it reached out to the community, and they have, and all sorts of community groups are out there. So there's the police and the fire and the library, so kids can come and get free books. They can pet comfort the dog. They can get Recreation Parks is there. They had yoga demonstrations, so every Monday that will be going on. And our summer meals started Monday as well. We have over 40 sites throughout the county that will be served for 40 meals. And I believe Ms. Reese says their goal for the summer is 150,000 meals. And I have no doubt that she will hit that coming out. So hats off to the Food Nutrition Services for the great things they do for our kids all year long, not just during the school year. So item 2.07 is the CRASC report.
Sorry about that.
Good morning, President Hummer, members of the board, and Dr. Arlotto. Hello, my name is Savannah Quick. I attend Northeast High School, and I'm your new Secretary of Education. I'm excited to be representing the students of Anne Arundel County, and I thank you for giving me an opportunity as great as this one. As of May 21st, CRASC has many new officers, and I would like to recognize them today. Our president is Anthony Liberatori, vice president is Coleman Campbell, Secretary of Communication for a second term, Nick Medlin, Secretary of Legislation is Rita Alvey, Secretary of Service Eric McAlexander, and our middle school coordinator, Beckett Hummer. Last week, we had our final meeting for the 2017-2018 school year. Last evening, several members of CRASC attended the Action Annapolis event to meet candidates for the upcoming primary election. We are also excited for a summer trip to Washington, D.C., and the opportunity for two of our members to attend the National Capital Area Youth Conference at St. John's College. Looking ahead to the 2018-2019 year, we are passionate about topics of mental health, school safety, and supporting military families. We plan to host general assemblies focused on these topics. Another goal for CRASC is to increase involvement with our middle schools. We plan to have CRASC officers attend various middle school orientations in August and have a field trip planned to Arlington Echo to complete the Initiative and Confidence course in September. Our weekly meetings will convene in August, and at this time, we will begin revisions to our Constitution. Once again, I'm excited to work with everyone and to see what the 2018-2019 year brings. I appreciate the time to give you a quick update about what's happening in CRASC. Thank you.
And welcome. We look forward to seeing you each month.
Thank you.
Mr. Butcher.
Real quick, I had a couple questions on that report.
sorry.
I want to torment you too. Can you at least tell us what happened and that the other person is worse? And and make sure that whatever the story is, that you add some tall tales in there. Like,
I really should, because the story's kind of sad and not that good. I stepped wrong finishing a sprint in track, and my knee popped.
you saved how many babies?
Like 100. So many.
All right, well, Godspeed on that recovery.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Am I good?
This is what you have to look forward to every month. Just be prepared.
I love it.
So.
It's never. All right. Items 4.01 through,
Hold on. Item 4.01 through 4.13 are consent items. Do I have a motion to bundle these items?
So moved.
All those in favor?
All right.
Okay. This is an information to action items. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, an action item. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of the contracts listed on today's agenda, 4.01 through 4.13.
So moved.
Are there any board questions or comments on items 4.01 through 4.13? Is there any public comment on these items? Mr. Shagnovich, you have it easy today on this one. All those in favor of items 4.01 through 4.13? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item 5.01 is administrative personnel appointments. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of the personnel listed on the attached sheet be promoted and or appointed.
So move.
Okay. Is there any board comments on this? All right. All those in favor? Motion passes. It's that time of year. Lots of moving around between schools, so exciting things happening. Item 5.02 is ratification of the negotiated agreement between the Board of Education and the Teachers Association of Anne Arundel County. And do we do presentation first or you first? This is an action item. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of the tentative agreement between the Board of Education and the Teachers Association of Anne Arundel County.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Rawls.
Yes, good morning, Hummer, Dr. Arlotto, and members of the board. The negotiating teams for the Board of Education and the Teachers Association of Anne Arundel County and the Board of Education of the Teachers Association have reached a tentative agreement for fiscal year 2019 subject to your approval. In brief, the summary of changes as agreed upon by both parties include, but are not limited to, one full step increase to eligible Unit 1 employees. All Unit 1 employees will receive a 2% COLA. An increase to the extra instructional hourly wage will occur effective July 1st, 2019, with an increase from $25 to $30 per hour. And then lastly, modifications to FMLA, which include the implementation of a $1,250 hour work requirement, a rolling calendar year, and a job-protected alternative leave program will be implemented for employees who are ineligible for FMLA. The negotiating teams diligently work to reach an agreement that serves the best interest of Anne Arundel County Public Schools, TAC members, and supports the commitment to Anne Arundel County Public Schools students, staff, and community. I would like to thank Bill Jones, Executive Director, Richard Benfer, the President of TAC, and their negotiating team for their dedicated efforts during FY19 negotiations. On June 6, 2018, TAC ratified this agreement, and I respectfully request your approval and ratification of the noted summary of changes.
Good morning. I'm Bill Jones, the Executive Director of TAC and the Chief Spokesperson of their negotiating team. I also ask for your support in approving this collective bargaining agreement. And I do also want to acknowledge the spirit of collaboration and the hard work and the many hours from October to April put in to come to this agreement. It's my understanding this is going to be a very short-lived agreement, so will my statement be. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Are there any board questions or comments? Okay. Is there any public comment? All right. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Oh, I forgot to mention this earlier. I'm just throwing them there. Ms. Korbelak and Mr. Grannon are both out of town on work obligations, so that's why they're not here today. Okay. Item 5.03 is ratification of the negotiated agreement between the Board of Education and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Local 1693. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of the tentative agreement between the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Local 1693.
Do I have a motion? Second. All right. Ms. Rawls.
Again, my name is Melissa Rawls for the record, and I am the Director of Employee Relations. The negotiating teams for the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Local 1693, and the Board of Education of Anne Arundel County have reached a tentative agreement for fiscal year 2019, subject to your approval. In brief, the summary of changes as agreed upon by both parties include but are not limited to a full step increase to eligible Unit 3 employees. All Unit 3 employees will receive a 2% COLA. Modifications to include reimbursement for employees who complete the external diploma program will also be implemented. And finally, modifications to FMLA, which include the implementation of a 1,250-hour work requirement, a rolling calendar year, and a job-protected alternative leave program for employees who are ineligible for FMLA. The negotiating teams diligently work to reach an agreement that best serves the interest of Anne Arundel County Public Schools, AFSCME members, and supports their commitment to AACPS students, staff, and community. I would like to take a moment to thank Corey Blake, Special Assistant to the Executive Director of AFSCME, Council 67, and Roland Johnson, the President of AFSCME, Local 1693, for their hard work in reaching this agreement. On June 9, 2018, AFSCME ratified this agreement, and I respectfully request your approval and ratification of the noted summary of changes.
Are there any board questions or comments? Is there any public comment? All right, all those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Rawls. And thank you to all the bargaining units that on both sides. I know this is long and detailed work, and I'm pleased, we're all pleased that everybody's come to agreement, tentative agreements moving forward. Thank you. All right. Item 5.04 is an information to action item. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action?
So move.
All those in favor? Okay. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of the 2018 Educational Facilities Master Plan.
So move.
Okay. All right.
Good morning, President Hummer, members of the board, Dr. Arlotto. For the record, I'm Lisa Seaman Crawford, Director of Facilities, and with me,
Kyle Roof, Supervisor of Planning, Design, and Construction.
Greg Stewart, Senior Manager of Planning.
Scott Schuler, Student Demographics Specialist.
although we don't have a presentation today, I have a brief summary of what's in front of you. Before you is the Educational Facilities Master Plan for your approval. Every year, as mandated by the state, the Educational Master Plan is submitted by each of the 24 LEAs by July 1. It is required that each LEA annual and 6-year capital improvement program be in accordance with the current master plan. Included in the master plan are goals, standards, and guidelines for the school system facilities, an inventory and evaluation of existing school facilities, including square footage, acreage, and state-rated capacity, enrollment data, projections for the next 10 years, and facility utilization. And it also includes available school sites. And I just want to thank the staff for their hard work. They do this every year, and it is quite a task. So I thank Mr. Roof, Stewart, and Schuler, and Mr. Lucas for their hard work.
All right, are there any board questions or comments on the master plan? Is there any public comment? All those in favor? All right, passes. Thank y'all for all your hard work. It is very comprehensive. Sorry. Item 5.05 is an information to action item, Edgewater Elementary School deed of easement. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action? Second. All those in favor? Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of the Edgewater Elementary School deed of easement.
Second.
All right. Are there any board questions or comments on this item? Is there any public comment? All those in favor? Edgewater is eased. There we go. I don't think that's how it works. That's not the official terminology.
Okay.
Item 5.06 is also an information action item, Edgewater Elementary School Forest Conservation Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of the Forest Conservation Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions at Edgewater Elementary School.
So move.
Are there any board questions or comments on this item? All right, are there any public comment? All those in favor? All right, now Edgewater is conserved. There we go. They're eased and conserved. Item 5.07 is an action item, third reading of policy GAD, confidential communication reporting of at-risk student behavior. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of policy GAD, subject to final correction for style and format.
So move.
All right. So are there any board questions or comments? Is there any public comment? All right. All those in favor? Okay. This one passes. Item 5.08 is also an action item, a policy GAII, staff wellness. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of policy GAII, subject to final correction for style and format.
Okay. Second. All right. Are there any board questions or comments? Any public comment? All those in favor? All right. Passes. Thank you, ladies. All right. And now, okay. Item 5.09 is an information action item, the FY 2019 operating budget adoption. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action?
So moved. Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of the Board of Education FY 2019 operating budget to include internal budget adjustments as approved by the board.
So move.
Okay. Mr. Shaknovich.
For the record, Alex Shaknovich, Chief Operating Officer.
Matt Stansky, Director of Financial Operations.
And thank you for this opportunity to appear for you to give you a briefing regarding the budget that was adopted by the County Council on June the 14th of 2018 regarding our FY 2009 operating budget. You should have a summary that's been passed out regarding the County Council approved budget, and we will quickly walk you through some of the highlights. On the revenue side, which is the money coming into the district, if you focus on the upper right quadrant of the exhibit before you, you'll see the budget that was adopted aligns exactly with the Board of Education's request in terms of the federal government, and that being that an additional $2.15 million worth of revenue from federal government sources unrestricted will come to the district. We asked the state for state funding increase of $9,542,000 year-over-year difference, meaning that we'll get $363 million from the state. Remember, the state is formulaic. That, in fact, was agreed to by the County Council, so that state funding contingent stood as requested by the board. From county government sources, we asked for $50.9 million year-over-year increase. 19 over 18 was the official request that was adopted by the board and put forward to the council. The County Council agreed to provide $687 million, just slightly in excess, meaning that the year-over-year increase was $27.9 million. Again, the board had asked for $50.8 million. It's important to note that here in Maryland, we have the maintenance of effort provision that requires a sort of formulaic-driven calculus that keeps flat funding based on student enrollment growth or decline. We are a growing district. When running those computations, the maintenance of effort level for Anne Arundel County for the year ahead would be approximately $12.6 million. So the budget that was approved by the County Council, $27.9 million, does exceed the state maintenance of effort provisions. On the local front, the County Council concurred with $690,000 of revenue increase. All of the unrestricted elements remain essentially the same. On the expense side, we'll go through those in a little bit more detail then. So if, as you recall, in terms of the compensation placeholders, the Board of Education had asked essentially for the equivalent of a full step increase for those eligible employees in represented units, as well as a 2% COLA. That was the official request of the Board of Education. The final adopted budget, adopted by the County Council, aligns with the recommendations that were put forward by the County Executive, and that essentially provides for the equivalent of a full year step increase for those employees eligible, and then a mid-year implementation of a step for those employees eligible. Naturally, that's entirely contingent upon successful negotiated agreements, but it would provide sufficient funding to implement something in line with that, should that be the desire of the bargaining units and this board. In terms of the employees' share of health care, the Board of Education had asked for $4 million. Ultimately, $3 million is what is being provided for within this budget. That value was arrived at in collaboration with the county government. As well, you know that we have been very aggressive in terms of identifying funds within our Board of Education's budget to move over into the healthcare arena, and we've passed second and fourth quarter budget transfer requests to accomplish exactly that. And so largely based on that, we all felt comfortable collectively to reduce that request by $1 million in the year ahead, and the County Council and their auditor concurred with that. We are expanding our contract schools, most notably that in Annapolis. As you recall, they have by schedule, by contract, an enrollment increase coming in the year ahead, as well as all of our charter and contract schools. All four of them have a commensurate PPE funding allocation increase, which when our tides rise our boat, their boat rises to the same degree. So our request was just under $3.1 million, and that was fully funded by the County Council. In terms of the remaining categorical elements, we'll cover those that were funded. So in the alternative education arena, the half FTE for restorative practice was funded. Happily, the entire request to open the much anticipated Carrie Whedon Pre-K Center in South County was fully funded, as was the EEE contingent to expand EEE to now the 6th cluster in the county, that being the Annapolis cluster, 12.5 positions. The County Council agreed with the two technical adjustments at no additional cost for the HR payroll technician, as well as the professional growth and development specialist. The next item, the Board of Education, if you look on the far left-hand side, had requested 5.8 psychologists and 2 social workers. The budget that was ultimately approved by the County Council aligns with the supplemental budget that was put forward by the County Executive in the days preceding the final budget adoption, and funded 4 FTEs. Those 4 being distributed as follows: 2 psychologists and 2 social workers. So it's 2 and 2. Going down in the school counselor arena, the Board of Education's final budget that was transmitted to the County Executive on the 14th of, on the 1st of March, requested 14.4 school counselors. Ultimately, 4.0 school counselors were approved, and again, this was as a result of the County Executive's supplemental budget, and the County Council agreed to uphold that supplemental budget. In the area of special education staffing for enrollment, 13 positions were originally requested, 6 positions were ultimately funded. That is in alignment with the County Executive's recommendation that he issued on the 1st of May. For teachers for enrollment growth, 106 positions were requested in the board's officially adopted request. Ultimately, 86 positions were funded. As you may recall, 44 of those 86 positions were initially recommended within the County Executive's budget request. The County Council's actions added 42 additional positions to that, rising the total FTE increase year over year to 86. And then finally, the final year of the fiber ring expansion, and as you recall, you had a presentation from Mr. Lyons from the county. This has been a multi-year Herculean effort to build out a very robust, secure, underground, high-speed data fiber ring that connects all county buildings, including schools, public safety, et cetera. This will be sufficient funding to finally finish off that endeavor, and all of our buildings will be connected as well. All in, if you go to the bottom line there, you'll see that we requested 290.5 positions. Ultimately, 129.9 FTEs were approved. At the bottom line, the Board of Education all in requested just under $55.2 million of revenue increase, which would have amounted to a 4.78% year-over-year increase. The budget was adopted by the County Council on the 14th of June, approved a revenue increase, again from all sources, net, of $29,894,300, which is a 2.59% budget increase. I'll just say in closing, it almost seems like the budget process never ends. We began back in September. Dr. Arlotto put forward his budget in December. This board put forward their budget in the end of February. The county executive did so as of May 1, and the county council did so as of June 14th. The results of the budget before you all, that not fully funded, are really a testament to the amount of work, but more importantly, the amount of collaboration. I know that there was extensive dialogue with the superintendent and this board. This board took great care to listen to the public comment and input. There was a lot of dialogue between this board and the superintendent, county executive, and his staff. Again, he took a lot of input in from the public, and finally the county council did the same. So while not fully funded, this is a very good budget, and I believe it puts us in a position to open our schools in the year ahead, albeit we're going to have to do some adjustments, as we always do, and I'm sure under the guidance of the superintendent, this board will successfully do so. And with that, we'll turn it over to you for any comments or questions.
Ms. Sasso.
In reference to the budget, I would like to thank the City Council and our County Executive, Steve Shue, for their arduous work in listening to the board for some of the needs. And remember, I said for some of the needs of this county students of this board. I understand the limitations of money, but as a growing county, we must truly evaluate the needs of the school system, our teachers and our students, to hopefully one day be not only the #1 school system in the United States because of the rate of graduates that we produce, but also because of the teachers' pay and the student services that are given to our students, but also to be the #1 county with its services and its amenities. Right now, the county has great amenities and great services, and we have to work towards our school system that way too. We have covered at this point the bare needs of our teachers and our students ratio, but Steve Shue and the City Council, I really understand that they have truly tried their best based on what the county budget has been. So thank you very much.
Ms. Nally.
I echo those words, and I again appreciate, I think Mr. Jaknovich, you guys, your team has done a marvelous job. This has been a hard budget year. I appreciate all of the support and the listening. We did listen. I know a lot of folks think we don't, but this board has listened, and so have County Executive Shue and the County Council, and I appreciate that. Sometimes Emily Brandenburg is not mentioned, but I want to mention her because she is the liaison for County Executive Shue, and I know that she has, well, maybe not pulled all of her hair out, but some of it during this process. Thank you, Emily. And with that, again, I think that this goes is a good compromise. I do think that we still have great needs, as mentioned, and I hope this collaborative atmosphere will continue. This board really, really took this budget extremely seriously. Each of us, and as Dr. Arlotto has said, we meet with Dr. Arlotto, We tell him our concerns. We've worked very hard, and to analyze and look at all the needs of our school system. So none of our amendments were made lightly. None of them were made without deep thought and concern for the children of our county and the teachers. Thank you.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you both as well, and certainly your teams, respectively. I do have one question that I wanted to ask, but just again, I think to jump on the bandwagon as well and say thank you, certainly to County Executive Steve Hsu, members of the council, and certainly Ms. Brandenburg. And we could talk about a whole bunch of different categories, but one in particular is just the mental health support services, and I appreciate all the work that went in to that area. That's just one area, I think, since the start of the school year, and then with a number of events that have occurred nationwide. That's just a critical need area for us, and I really appreciate the attention that is getting now. My question is on the state budget category analysis, and I think it's just really to get your insight and perspective, but then also to clarify what potentially could lead to some concerns if not clarified, and that is on the MOI line, or instruction supplies and materials, where we've got what looks to be from one fiscal year to the next almost a $1.5 million, roughly 5% delta. And I wanted to ask if you could elaborate on why that reduction is there, at least in this category, and how those funds were diverted.
Sure. So essentially, obviously it funds instructional supplies and materials, but within that, it really comes down to two different major elements. The first is MOI. That's materials of instructions that are deployed out into the schools, essentially on a per capita or student enrollment basis. No reductions in this budget in any way, shape, or form are reducing the amount of monies that are being sent out to our 125 plus elementary schools. So the amount of dollars that they have to work with in terms of principal's discretion, department head discretion, et cetera, all of that is going to remain untouched. The vast majority of this, approximately $1 million of this adjustment, occurred on the other side of the account, the instructional supply and material, and that principally has to do with our single textbook adoption program. We have budgeted historically, or the budget that was adopted by the board had set aside about $10 million for what we call STA, single text adoption. As you know, we cyclically try to replace textbooks about every 6 to 7 years. Some analysis is done about which textbooks need to be replaced, et cetera. And then part of that money also funds consumables. So while the textbook can remain in use for many, many years, a lot of these books come with consumables or manipulatives that are one time. So all of the funding for those consumables, the manipulatives, et cetera, that is all fully funded. Again, none of that remains untouched at all. We were faced with some very tough decisions this year, budgetarily, Mr. Gilliland. And as you know, in an era where we do have fiscal constraints, I mean, we understand the dynamics of the county and the revenue constraints that are placed upon that, and the tough position that our fiscal authorities, I mean, the county executive managing the budgets and the sister agencies such as ours, as well as the county council, was placed in, trying to, as Ms. Sasso said, take a look at all of the public services and all the public benefit and goods that we're trying to support. But there was a clear focus this year on trying, in addition to the social emotional supports that you mentioned, Mr. Gilliland, there was a clear focus on trying to look at every avenue possible to garner as many teachers for enrollment growth. And as you recall, the county executive put forward a recommendation that was for 44, just shy, well shy of the 106 that our calculation showed we needed for that year-over-year break-even point of 106. And it wasn't without deliberation, because his budget request had a lot of the other items in our budget funded. So he made a decision that he's rationalized and espoused upon on May 1st. But the county council heard a tremendous amount of input, again, in terms of the public hearings about class sizes increases. And so the county council was very focused on trying to identify resources to put forward towards that. Madam Auditor, Ms. Dickinson for the county identified a lot of areas that the county council could consider trimming in other areas of county government and redeploying those resources potentially towards additional teachers for enrollment. And the county council, in collaboration with the county executive administration in some cases unilaterally, accepted many of Ms. Dickerson's recommendations, and that did in fact allow some additional teachers for enrollment. But yet we still collectively felt that we were short of what we needed. And so we were asked, the superintendent and staff were asked to dig back into our budget now that we're really at the 11th hour, now that we really have 11/12 of our numbers for the year fully baked in and can do some analysis. Is there anywhere that we can possibly identify monies on a short-term basis to redeploy towards instructional salaries, i.e. the hiring of new teachers to put against our enrollment growth? And in analyzing that, the one area that we felt that we could do so safely on a short-term basis was to take a look at that single textbook adoption program. And taking a look at the textbooks that we had and the cycle for adopting them, we felt collectively that we could defer $1 million worth of those cyclical replacements strategically and take those dollars and redeploy them towards us bringing on approximately 13 more teachers in exchange for that. We know that's not what the position any of us wished we were in, but circumstances were as such that the needs to keep enrollment, class size enrollment, from continuing to just spiral upwards were really so pressing that I think managerially the superintendent felt that it was prudent to make that shift. And therefore that was the recommendation that we conveyed to the county council. They did not take that recommendation lightly neither. I mean, they want to make sure that all the youngsters have sufficient materials of instruction. They pointedly asked, was this going to shortchange any school? We definitively said no, in no way, shape, or form. It's really going to be only that cyclical, 6 to 7 to 8 year sort of plan, and the curriculum and instruction department are very deliberately analyzing where is the best place to make a 1-year deferral. But in exchange for that, we did get those additional teaching positions, Mr. Gilland.
I'll just echo what my colleagues have said. This is really, there's a lot of board discussion on the budget up here, but there's an awful lot more hard work that goes on with the staff and the county and board members and county councilmen kind of behind the scenes. And this has been an ongoing discussion and collaboration for the past couple of months. And I am grateful to everyone from the county side and the school system side and on the board side for all that hard work. But most importantly, I have to give the full praise to the community, the parents and the teachers and other people that came out and very loudly shared their priorities to us at the board and to the county council to let them know what their priorities were, that teachers and mental health supports and were the most important things that came out. And I think everyone heard that. We as a board heard that, as was reflected in the amendments we made to the budget. The county executive heard that as evidence in his supplemental budgets that came out to address the mental health needs that came out, and the county council certainly heard it as they worked very hard to bring us more teachers. I'm thrilled that we're going to have an additional restorative practices person. I think that's a crucial thing moving forward for our school system as we help children grow and learn empathy and what their actions have meaning toward others. The expansion of pre-K to South County is huge, and that will fill a great need, as well as EEE in Annapolis. I think that's going to be a wonderful thing. But we all have to say this is still does not meet all the needs of our county. This is going back many years, many administrations. This is not the fault of anyone who's in authority now, but our schools have not been, the funding has not been keeping up. And while these additional teachers are great, our class sizes probably will go up with these based on enrollment. And we're not addressing enough the mental and social health issues of our students, nor of our English language learners. So all those things are short. So everyone needs to continue fighting for those. This is a budget that came about, as I said, through hard work and collaboration, and I'm pleased with much of it. But everyone needs to know that we've got to continue working to move forward to fill the needs of our system that have been neglected for a very long time. Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam President. Considering everything that we've heard up here, is there any mechanism that this board has to request additional monies for the upcoming year?
There is not. The system that has worked is that we present our budget, it goes to the county executive, he works his budget, then it goes to the county council, and then they fund. We can certainly continue meeting with county councilmen and the county executive and letting them know what our needs are, but there is not a mechanism to go back, for instance, and appeal this budget and say that we would like more. But as we said, many people have been working very hard over the past couple of months. This is the budget that we have, and we will continue to start working for the next budget to continue with that, but there is not a mechanism that we can move forward and challenge this in some way for that. So, are there any other board questions or comments on the budget? Is there any public comment? All right. All those in favor? The FY budget, FY19 capital budget is adopted.
Correction, ma'am.
Oh, it's operating. I'm sorry. Now we're moving on to capital budget. Operating budget is adopted. Now we will move on to item 5.10. This is an information to action item, FY 2019 capital budget adoption. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action? Second. All those in favor? Okay. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend the Board of Education adopt the County Council approved FY 2019 capital budget as presented.
So move.
Mr. Shagnovich.
Good morning once again. Alex Shaknovich, Chief Operating Officer.
Lisa Seaman Crawford, Director of Facilities.
And thank you for the opportunity of presenting a brief overview of the FY19 capital budget adoption that again occurred on June the 14th of 2018 in County Council chambers ahead of the June 15th County Charter deadline. If you look at the red, white, and blue sheet, I'll simply walk you through some of the highlights and some of the changes that have transpired from when we last met after the county executive had introduced his budget proposal on the 1st of May. In the far left column, at the highest level, you'll see that the request from the Board of Education officially amounted to $216 million, and that is a combination of state and county resources. The budget that was ultimately approved by the County Council was $190.3 million. That's at the macro level. Now, the important thing to note there in that left-hand column is the budget that was originally proposed as of May 1, when the county executive initially put forward his budget, had $157.7 million. And so what's changed between $157.7 million and $190.3 million? The substantive change really had to do with Edgewater, Tyler Heights, and Richard Henry Lee. As you know, those three items were in fact included in the county executive's proposal as of May 1, but there was not sufficient funding to start, to aggressively start the construction of those projects early in the year, i.e. tail end of summer, early fall. It would have provided sufficient funding for us to get those projects started, but in mid to late spring. There was a tremendous amount of energy, as you know, through the course of the public hearings at all levels to get those three projects going. They've been on the books for a long time. They were on the books of the 2005-2006 MGT study. They were on the books again in the 2015 MGT study. So the request has been pending for quite some time. And that's not just at the county level, too. Our state officials also heard from a tremendous amount of individuals that wanted to be able to get those projects going. The county executive and his staff, much like the social emotional issue we spoke about earlier, huddled up with his team and developed a way to issue a supplemental budget that advanced those projects forward from the initial concept that was deployed on May the 1st to these new, more aggressive funding schedules. So by way of example, and I'll walk you through all three, Edgewater Elementary School was originally recommended for $4.2 million. Now the adopted budget by the council funds Edgewater at $16.7 million. The initial request for Tyler Heights was funded at $4.4 million. That has been increased to $15.2 million. And again, Richard Henry Lee, which was originally funded at $3.1 million, has increased to $15.6 million. Much like the operating budget, this took a tremendous amount of collaboration on the part of the county. The county has, just like on the operating side, has capital debt affordability issues that they need to wrestle with. They need to try to maintain their AAA bond rating so that we get preferential interest rates and we don't overpay on the mortgage, per se, general obligation bonds. It took a Herculean effort on the part of the county to essentially make this work. If you don't know, a little point of personal privilege, Mr. Hammond, the county budget director, this is his last budget. He's announced his retirement after many, many, many years of shepherding this county through thick and thin financially. But Mr. Hammond and his team and the county executive found a way to put money in for these three projects, check to make sure it wouldn't hurt our credit rating, wasn't violate any of our capital debt affordability limits. They were very creative in the way they did it, but thankfully the funding did materialize for those three projects, and Ms. Seaman Crawford and her team are actively engaged in getting all three projects off the ground. And for that, we are very thankful. The one piece I will, as a sideline, say that you don't see here is you remember that the county executive, along with many members of this board and the superintendent, attended an announcement back at Annapolis High School regarding security funding. That funding is not here. That is going to come over to us as part of a first quarter transfer budgetarily. So we're working collaboratively with the county administration and county council to facilitate that. So don't be alarmed that you don't see that number here. That's in the works. And with that, we'll turn it over to you and your colleagues, Madam President.
That I was going to ask you about that security, so I'm glad to hear that that's coming through. Is that yes, I want to give a big thank you to all the people who worked very hard to make sure that we'd keep these elementary schools on track. I've been seeing numerous pictures on Facebook from the families of and teachers of Richard Henry Lee as they pack up and how excited they are that their school's coming through. So that is going to mean a great deal to all of these communities. So thank you to everyone on the county side and the school system side that helped make that happen. Ms. Sasso.
One of the things that I want to praise Steve Shue and the county council is it is very important that we let the community see that we look at the minority schools as much as we look at the other schools, because these three schools are very much located in low-cost area, low-cost housing, low-cost income, and throughout the last years, what we have basically developed, constructed, redone have been those at Severna Park, Crofton, which are considered middle class, the white population. So I really think it's very great to see that we are addressing also part of the minority community and where these schools are. So thank you very much.
Are there any other board questions or comments? Is there any public comment? All right, all those in favor? All right, the capital budget passes. All right. Okay. All right, as we move on to the next item, the operating budget as adopted by this board a few minutes ago, utilizing funding provided by the county, which is the final fiscal authority, does not fully fund agreements approved by the board with the Teachers Association of Anne Arundel County, the Association of Educational Leaders, or the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. Those are our Unit 1, Unit 2, and Unit 3 employees. No agreement has been reached to date with our Unit 4 employees, represented by the Secretaries and Assistants Association of Anne Arundel County. As per the motion offered by Mr. Gilliland and approved by the board earlier in this meeting, the board will now consider terms of employment for employees in these bargaining units, terms of employment for Unit 1, and continuing through terms of employment for Unit 4 employees. The board will then take up Agenda Item 5.11, terms of employment for Unit 5 and Unit 6 employees. So, Ms. Rawls.
Good morning again. My name is Melissa Rawls, and I am the Director of Employee Relations. The fiscal authorities, as you just mentioned, for Anne Arundel County did not provide sufficient funds in the FY 2019 budget to fully fund the negotiated agreement between the Board of Education and the Teachers Association of Anne Arundel County. Accordingly, pursuant to provisions of the Education Article and the TAC negotiated agreement, the parties must enter into renegotiations regarding applicable sections of the negotiated agreement. For this reason, I respectfully request that the following terms of employment be established for Unit 1 employees for FY 2019, which will continue until any modified terms are approved and or ratified. That would be no step or longevity salary increases for Unit 1 employees.
Yes.
Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of the terms of employment for the Teachers Association of Anne Arundel County as outlined by Ms. Rawls.
Okay. All right. Are there any board questions or comments? Is there any public comment on this? Okay. All those in favor? All right. Terms of employment for Unit 1 employees passes 7-0. Next.
The fiscal authorities for Anne Arundel County did not provide sufficient funds in the FY 2019 budget to fully fund the negotiated agreement between the Board of Education and the Association of Educational Leaders. Accordingly, pursuant to provisions of the Education Article and the AEL negotiated agreement, the parties must re-enter into negotiations for applicable sections of the negotiated agreement. For this reason, I respectfully request that the following terms of employment be established for Unit 2 employees for FY 2019, which will continue until any modified terms are approved and or ratified. Those terms would include no step or longevity salary increases and no performance pay for Unit 2 employees.
Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of the terms of employment for Unit 2 employees, the Association of Educational Leaders.
Okay. Is there any board question or comments? Is there any public comment? All those in favor? Okay. Terms of employment for Unit 2 passes 7-0. Ms. Rawls.
Similarly, the fiscal authorities for Anne Arundel County did not provide sufficient funds in the FY 2019 budget to fully fund the negotiated agreement between the Board of Education and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Local 1693. Accordingly, pursuant to provisions of the Education Article and the AFSCME negotiated agreement, the parties must renegotiate applicable sections of the negotiated agreement. For this reason, I respectfully request that the following terms of employment be established for Unit 3 employees for FY 2019, which will continue until any modified terms are approved and or ratified. And those terms would be to provide a one-step increase to all eligible Unit 3 employees.
Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation?
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of the terms of employment for our Unit 3 employees, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Local 1693.
So moved.
Second? Okay. Ms. Nally.
I'm just curious, why are the terms of employment for this group different from the other two bargaining units?
So as a part of the tentative agreement between AFSCME and the board, and similar to the budget that the board just adopted, both of which included a one-step increase for eligible employees. And so AFSCME has determined to move forward with the implementation of the step increase effective July 1, 2018, and will renegotiate the balance of the equivalent value for the mid-year step.
Thank you.
Ms. Sasso.
Does that mean then that the other units come 1 July, they will not have the step until the contracts have been negotiated?
Correct. So as I briefly mentioned, as a part of the renegotiation process, the bargaining teams from both the board and the respective unions have to come back together to determine how to apply what has been now adopted in the board's budget.
Thank you.
Are there any other board questions or comments? Is there any public comment? Okay, all those in favor? All right. Terms of employment for Unit 3 employees passes 7-0. Ms. Rawls.
The negotiating teams for the Board of Education and the Secretaries and Assistants Association of Anne Arundel County have not yet reached a tentative agreement for ratification. For this reason, I respectfully request that the following terms of employment be established for Unit 4 employees for FY 2019. These terms will continue in effect until a successor amended negotiated agreement is approved and ratified. Those terms will include no step or longevity increases, and it will also include the implementation of a 4-day work week, which will begin on July 4th, 2018 through August 14th, 2018.
Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation?
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of the terms of employment for our Unit 4 employees, the Secretaries and Assistants Association of Anne Arundel County, as outlined by Ms. Rawls.
Okay. Are there any board questions or comments? I know, they're jumping the gun on that one. Any questions or comments? Any public comment? All those in favor? Okay, terms for Unit 4 employees passes 7-0. And now we move on to terms of employment for Unit 5 and Unit 6 employees. Ms. Rawls.
Yes. Terms of employment have been established for AACPS non-represented Unit 5 and Unit 6 employees for FY 2019. The following is a summary of recommended changes. 1, a step increase will be granted to all eligible Unit 5 employees. A 2% cost of living adjustment will be provided for Unit 5F and Unit 6 employees, and those will take effect July 1st, 2018. No performance pay will be awarded. There will be modifications to the FMLA procedures, which include the implementation of a 1,250-hour work requirement, a rolling calendar year, and the implementation of a job-protected alternative leave program for employees who are ineligible for FMLA. Unit 5 and 6 employees will work a 4-day work week schedule, which will commence on July 4th, 2018, and it will run through August 14th, 2018. I respectfully request your approval of the terms of employment that have been identified for FY19.
Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of the terms of employment for our Unit 5 and Unit 6 employees for FY 2019.
Are there any board questions or comments? Is there any public comment? All right, all those in favor? All right, the terms of employment for Unit 5 and 6 employees passes 7-0. Thank you, Ms. Rawls. Thanks. Item 6.01 is a review item, contracts, award of contracts. Are there any board questions or comments on any of these contracts? Is there any public comment? All right. Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. Before we adjourn, I just want to recognize Mr. Reinhardt's son and daughter are here with us today. Cameron is a rising 4th grader at Linthicum Elementary School, and Clara is a rising 3rd grader at Linthicum Elementary School. So thank you for being here with us today and supporting Dad. Madam President, I move that the board stand adjourned.
Do I have a second? All those in favor? Okay, the next board meeting will be Wednesday, July 11th at 10 a.m. here in the boardroom. Thank you very much.
The thing we talk about at our child care program and in the meals at that program is, you know, the school day is a long day, and kids are excited at lunchtime. They probably don't necessarily eat as well as they should because they're excited. They want to finally get a chance to talk to their friends and be with their friends some. At the end of the day, after a long school day, they're hungry. So they come to our program. They're expecting good food. And it is very important, and so that is an